Alright, welcome back to the second part. This is where I'm gonna try to explain what I did the code. Spent quite a few days of working on this. So, when you probably open it, you're gonna be what the fuck's going on here? And, well, I'll try to briefly explain what I did here. So maybe that'll help you understanding what's going on and what's the idea behind it. Right, should we? No, alright, let's start with this one. So we'll start with the player build, which is the normal player build file designed by Avel, creator of Epoch. And right, so anything, I tried to leave everything here as it was, like originally, without really touching much of the stuff, with the exception of just adding stuff to it. No, editing or removing parts. It's all about just adding the extension to the clutter and bolt system. So the first one you might notice or not is the DZEI F, which is actually configured in the file. I can't remember. It was the one that controls the key presses on your keyboard. Doesn't matter. So a lot of few private variables there. I do apologize if I sound tired. That's because I am. I was working on this all night. Alright, so basically you can notice that there is some conditions here that will exit the script with DZEI action in progress is false, which means the player build will be cancelled, which means is in water, which means you are swimming, or you're in a vehicle, or you're in a ladder, for example. And it'll call string, which is defined in it's the localized file something. I can't remember the thing. I'm seriously sorry, died for this, but that's where you basically define different languages. So it's the same text, but you can kind of classify different languages for the same text. So you only need to call this string instead of doing different languages in here instead. Right, and then what I'm doing is I'm calling some custom functions in here, which just cleans up some points that will generate around, and it'll clean up the actions or add the user actions, add actions. Well, so it's all nice and tidy. Down below, some more of those. The fun part. There we go. So once we have the required item, start executing code. So basically, instead of attaching a normal object, for example, if you build a wall and the wall has a ghost model, for example, which, yeah, it finds the ghost model from the config file if it has one. So like normally you would have this object spawn in front of you that you're building, and it'll be attached to the player. Then you can rotate it or go up and down. In my case, it's a bit different. I am actually spawning an invisible sphere, which is one here. It's called object helper, and that object is actually attached to the sphere instead. So as you might know or may not know, in Epoch uses the variables SQF files, which is where you define the objects that are allowed in a game world. So if they're not in a list, they'll be instantly deleted. It's kind of like an anti-hack, I guess, if you so will. And the ghost objects are part of it. Ghost objects are normally the way the whole building system works here. Actually, is the ghost object is being literally detached from the player, and there is no code here in the player build that would delete a ghost object. It's non-existent. It doesn't exist here. So what happens is it just automatically deletes it. So if you were to add a ghost object to to variables to allow buildable objects, it would not get deleted, it would just stay there together with the object you built, which was converted into a non-coast object. So instead of changing variables, what we're doing here is we're creating an invisible sphere, a helper object, which is actually allowed in the game, but it's just invisible. And then we're attaching the build object onto the sphere instead. So that way we can place the sphere down on the ground, which is still invisible, and the object, while it's attached somewhere, it's not deleted, it will also stay in the world. So that's how we are able to do it. And then we just do the color. Color is just generated color, which is called it doesn't matter anyway. The point of this generating color is, of course, it's this part here. So red, green, white, red, green, blue, and the alpha channel. So and this last part here, instead of CO it says CA, which is the alpha texture, defines the alpha texture, and the 0 is invisible and 1 would be fully visible, the red ball. To change colors, you can actually use this guy here, SPUN's color picker, if you want to change color of your spheres. Just click the color, I'll give you code. Red, green, and blue, and the alpha channel. Right, next we are entering the loop when the game decides that it is okay to start, that the object is okay to build and all that kind of crap, and we're entering the while loop. It is okay, which is where you start, pressing your Q, Alt Q, or Control Q, or page up, page down, all that good stuff. This is where I added the F button, which basically works like a finite state machine. It toggles this bool here. So basically, if the bool is enabled, which is if the helper detach bool is true, it just goes through some code and then it just disables itself. So it kind of toggles. And the thing is, it doesn't go through the whole thing. It just goes through one thing at a time, because as you can see here, for example, if the bool was true, now we're setting false, but while it was true, it was not false, so this code is ignored, right? This part here. So then this guy is being switched off as well. So that's how you can iterate between the two, toggle between the two. And what we're doing here is literally just if the object was detached, if we put it on the ground while pressing F, it'll get the direction of the object and it'll attach to the player, and then it'll set the direction. So it'll be like a very seamless pickup of the object, or the other way around. And leave this fix here. So if you detach object while moving, it will basically move or just slide away from you. So leave this thing here. It just sets the velocity of it back to 0, so it doesn't move. It's pretty nifty fix. And the rotate part, you can see the first part, the rotate, is you can find the 45 degrees here as well. It's just if we are rotating and it's not detached, then we retain the normal epoch rotation, but if it's detached, then we do a new kind of rotation, which is set direction plus the direction we defined in here. Like, see, if helper is detached, and again here down below here, if helper is detached, just work together. I think that's it here. Yeah, so just the rest of it is just clean up code. Yeah. Right, the next part, I forgot to show you how we jump to the other one, which is the first action menu, the first user action, or the action. Where is it? It's okay. Oh, there we go. Sorry. So basically, once we start building, if the object we picked up, object's class name, is in a mission config file, it'll for me later on it'll be changed to just a config file with this part removed. But for now, since I'm just putting in a mission file and I'm sharing it with you guys, we're keeping it with a mission config file. If it's under the class snap building, and then it's like a subclass name, if it equals to that one. So where is it? Snap points. So there we go. This is the main class snap building. Right. So mission config file, this snap building, the first class, and then the class name we're checking against. Is it the same as these? Like, is it, if it's the land barrier preview, by the way, for example, like, or if it's the wood floor preview, for example. And for example, like you see here, there's an extension to this, which means it inherits the values. For example, these guys, you can see they all inherit the same values from somewhere else, which if you scroll on top, it's this one here. What they're doing is all these floors, instead of copy pasting all of this huge bunch of line of this array, instead of giving this full array to each of these, what we're doing instead is we're defining a class and we are building an array for it, and then we're just inheriting the array from this command here. Well, this classify, yeah, I don't know what you call it. So yeah, you don't have to do it all the time, like every time. So obviously the points will be different, so you do points differently as well. And you'll notice here that some of the points could be the same. For example, all the stairs are the same in the game, right? So I mean, dimensions wise. So you can, what you can do is you can inherit a whitelist from the stairs, and then you can do another basic class, and then you can do like a stairs preview, all that kind of good stuff. Then you can inherit the stairs class. You can inherit the points for all of these. You'll notice here that a lot of classes are being inheriting the same points. It's as simple as that. And then down here, it's just like the wood crate I showed you earlier. Remember, it just snaps to it itself. You see, it snaps to. It doesn't inherit anything. It's just what it is. It has its own snap to array with a single object in it, and it has its own points. The same goes with metal panel, metal gate, stick fence, and fence corrugated. And well, that's pretty much how the config file works. I mean, if you open up the CFG vehicles magazines, it's the same thing. Yeah, that's how it works. It's all about class inheritance. You don't have to do a lot of typing there. You can just inherit all the good stuff from it. Let me actually demonstrate you something else, something cool. Actually, it was Cinder. You can see here we have a Cinder wall half. You can inherit. We're actually inheriting points from other cinders, but the problem is it's just a half a wall. What we do is we're still inheriting all the good stuff like whitelists and all these points from the rest of the cinders. However, we are overwriting them. So this thing here, we're saying no. Well, we want everything else, but we want to replace the points. That's how you do it. It will not work like this. So you see, the pivot is defined twice. Well, it won't work. You know, you can't just remove this one and hope that this part will be copied over. That doesn't work that way. The whole array has to be, all array will be changed. So, for example, if you do like this, Cinder wall will not have any points anymore, because array will be, this array it's inheriting will be empty now. So overwritten. Hope you understand that now. Any questions, ask away in the comments. No worries, I'll answer them. I'm not really professional, good at with this, but this is kind of like the basic stuff, and it's not really that hard, isn't it? I mean, it seems hard at first, but once you understand how the inheritance works, it's kind of simple stuff, I guess. Right then, after we have compared if the class name exists in a snap points there, we are creating an add action which gives the action to toggle snapping for the player. It has to be a variable, so we can always delete it or switch it off. Right. This might look like a little bit of gibberish to you, but let me try my best to explain you. So this is who you are attaching the add action to. It can be objects in a world space as well. It doesn't have to be player. And once the object is deleted, I think the add action automatically deletes as well. I'm not quite sure on that one, but yeah, I would never actually attach the actions to anything else but player. It doesn't matter. Right, so we have several components here. As you can see, the first one starts with the color and some gibberish text and all that kind of good stuff. Basically, here in here we defining just like the color, which is, again, you can use spawns, SPUNs, color picker. It'll give you the HTML color tag, right? Can be any color you want. Just copy paste it over. It's an HTML tag, so any other HTML editor will give you proper codes as well. And then it's the actual text, so the color plus the actual text. So this T is it is for formatting. And I don't know why they're using the T, but Arma 2 engine and Arma 3 comes with their actual formattings. So this is just for the color, but there is a lot of more formatting. I think it actually uses HTML code for formatting. So you can have these uppercases, lowercases, headers. You can have headers as well, and all that good stuff if you want. But no, like you can even have an image here. I don't like. I'm pretty serious. You can load an image into an add action here. I think Killzone Kid did a tutorial on that as well, which goes in the first part here as well. So the second part is the script, location to the script we're executing. So that's the obvious part. So 1, 2, and then we have the third part, which is the arguments you wanna bring over to the next file. So basically, what we want to do is we have a switch statement. I'll show you later there. We want to bring over the object we are working with. We want to bring over the class name we're working with, and we want to bring over the object helper we're working with. This is the 6 is priority of the add action. So basically, the way add action is built, the 6 is the highest priority, so it'll be on top, and 1 will be the lowest priority. I don't know if it's 0, maybe. I think it's 6. And then you might want to look up the wiki for these. It just shows do you want the action to be visible like by default in the middle of the screen, and after using action, and this false is after using action, do you want to for the action to disappear immediately or stay in the middle of the screen. If you're using the old snap building, not the old one, but the popular one, you might notice that there is a toggle double snapping right in the middle of the screen, and it never disappears. Well, that's because these both values are true. Oh wait, this one is true and that one's false. Okay. Can't remember now, but you get the idea, right? Now, so if the and otherwise, if the object we're building is not configured in our snap points file, it'll simply just clean up the action. So yeah, you still need to clean up it, act the action, because we are actually building it here, right? Even if like the statement's true or not, it doesn't matter. We're still building it there. I don't know why that works that way, but yeah. and here you can notice the 3 zeros. That's because I'm doing the function for action cleanup, and it will for these guys here. If the state for the if statements. So basically, I can enable or disable these if statements remotely. So do not build that one. Do not build that one, and do not build that one. I'll explain. Yeah, yeah, you get the idea. If you don't, nobody. Right. Anyway, so we have we have brought some arguments over to new file once we click the action, right? So we have auth object class name and the object helper. So 1 2 3 4 arguments has been brought over. So this is where just normal private definitions, but this is where the arguments coming in. So we have the actions, snap actions. This used to be a local, a private value, but yeah, it's now a global value, because otherwise this thing wouldn't work. But I'm still capturing it, so whatever, who cares? You can do it different ways, but yeah, whatever, still capturing it. So we captured the object and we captured the class name object helper. This is how it looks like in this code. So if you remember, I was counting here. So this is the first part, the text is the first part. So select 0. No, wait, I think can't remember now. I think the text was select 0. Select 1 was this path here. Jesus, I can't remember that now. Select 2 was the number of the add action. All actions, they have just like normal digits. They have like if you want to delete action, you can go delete action and the number of the action. I think that was select 2. Doesn't matter. And this part here, my own added within these red brackets, is select 3. This is what we're capturing. So we are capturing select 3, select 3, select 3. So everything within the select 3, and then we capture the 0 object from the select 3. We capture the first one, which is object, and object will be select 3, select 1. So select 1 from select 3. So 0, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3. So I'm not sending the fourth value here over, but there's a reason for that. I'll show you now. Which is called selected action. Which basically what happens there is I'm building actions and I'm calling its own script. And that's how I can control actions. I know normally you guys would build these add actions and you would have a shit ton of extra scripts, or just a really small script for a single add action that does something really simple, and yet you still have that a single 1 kilobyte script lying in there and stinking up the place. Maybe you like that way. Maybe that's the proper way of doing it. I don't like it, sorry. And what I prefer to do is calling this script itself. So as long as it's within the function, I'm fine now. The function will not be called. If you reload the script, the function will be there. It will not be touched unless the function is called. So I'm pretty comfy with doing it this way as well. Next thing is we're checking the config file. Again, the class names and all that good stuff. Then we're checking the whitelist inside the config. So basically we are accessing the whitelists. We're defining whitelist variable, and we're trying to get array from CFG, which is this one. So we are jumping to mission config file, snap building, the class name we're working with. Come back here, and then we're checking the snap to array. Go back. This is the whitelist, basically, snap to. This is what we're capturing here. So that will be a new array. Whitelist will now be an array that will contain a full whitelist of the object we're currently holding. And then we're capturing the points from the same CFG from the class name. Let's say we're holding up a quarter wall, and then we're capturing its points. It will be a small array for the points. Then we're just doing colors. The active color is the green one with the alpha of 1, and the inactive add you just saw was the blue. These more of balls with alpha of 0.3 only. Right, so what we're doing here is you can actually skip the functions for now. Skip them. You don't get confused. Now, the first thing I did was creating script. I was doing the actions, of course, just to like make them actions toggleable and all that good stuff. So what we're doing is, again, we were capturing the action state, and what we're doing is we're doing a switch. So instead of a crazy amount of if statements, we just do a single switch of a single action state we're capturing, and then we can, you know, play around with that action state and to change its variable to switch around what we want to do. So basically, the off switch, we sent over the off switch, if you remember. The off was sent over to action states this select 3 0. Go back to snap points then, and we captured, and since the code was loaded, it's the first thing it's loading is if the case was off, which it was, because we sent that. It'll set action state to on, so it works like a toggle, you know, so for the actions as well. And the action state select is automatic, so this is where the automatic or manual comes in. And then we're calling again, we're calling action cleanup just in case, you know. And initialize snap points nearby. There's a difference. Initialize snap points is for the object we're holding, so we have more control of what we're doing. And we initialize snap points around the objects or around the whitelisted objects, and then we initialize function to start the snap distance check, which will toggle between manual and automatic. I'll show you how. Right, so we start with the first one, with the snap action cleanup. So basically, the snap actions is the actions we see in the left hand side on the screen. So to toggle between them, what we're doing here is let's open this function. So we're calling the function with some arguments here. Let me explain the arguments as well. So it has it has its own private variables. So inside this scope, it's like these variables will only work within this scope. They will not work outside. So if you were to check the S1 or 2 outside, it shouldn't work. I don't want to say anything like you guys gonna come on to me like, what the fuck, man, you're teaching the wrong things. But yeah, I think they won't work outside, so that's why they're there. It's within the scope. Please do correct me if I'm wrong. So what we're doing first is we're removing all the actions. We're removing this double snap, which was the first one defined in here. Toggle snap. And then we're doing a double snap select, which is just the rest of the actions we're generating there. And sorry, toggle snap, I mean that's the automatic and manual one. And the rest of the actions is actually within for each loop. I will be converting to count from for each. I do understand there is a performance thing issue whatever with the for each, so I've noticed debugger is changing the count, so I'll give it a try at some point. But for now, while I'm still learning and doing this stuff, I just want to stick with something I know that works. But yeah. Also, feel free to tell me why exactly. I understand there is a code execution. It's all about optimization and execution times of the code. But yeah, you know, whatever. So what we're doing here is we just remove every action against tested. X is a magic variable, so do not use it anywhere else. It's like the X or this, for example. These are both magic variables, right? You can't use them normally. You can't define them normally. So these guys has to be they're only gonna work against something you're testing. So for example, in here we have array full of toggle snap select points. This is like an array of actions, an array of action numbers, right? Anyway, so what we're doing is we're just saying for a player to remove all the actions against tested. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever we have that. So now, as we brought over the arguments 1 and 0, this means if this one will be activated because it's more than 0, sorry. So it was 1, 1, 0. So this will be activated, this will be activated, and this will not be activated. That's how we control amount of add actions we want to add. for example, if you remember here, we were cleaning up some actions as well. You see, we brought over 000 call snap action cleanup, which means they'll be cleaned up, but none of these will be generated anymore, right? Because they're all zeros. Well, in here, for example, we have 1111, which means all of these will be generated. So basically, this one here is for on and off. You can see snap %1, which just reads the snap action after the comma. So %2 would be, you can add something else if you want, like comma. You can check like S1, for example. It will be ones or zeros here. Then you can do so it'll be snap off or on, and it'll be 1 or 0 because we're checking against that one. Let me just undo that. Right, so and then we are calling the file, the very same snap build file. We're not calling any external files, it's calling itself, and we are still passing the variables through. And this is where we start doing what you call it, the priority. Sorry, you can see also I'm playing around with the false and true values around here. So this on and off will be the top priority, which always stays on top. Auto or manual will be always the second one, and the rest of the actions will be number 4, and they will be automatically generated depending on amount of the points we have in array. I'll show you how that's done as well. So in here, what we're doing here is, if the third value is activated, we're creating an empty array. We always start with empty. You always need to define these as well. And then we're just doing a simple count. This is how we actually also gathering up the right, never mind. We're just doing a simple count, right? And this is where we also we also have this count in the name of the action. So for example, if you remember, if when I switched the manual action, it would go like 1 2 3 4 5. For example, 1 would be the, or 0 that would be the pivot one, and 1 would be pivot, 2 would be left, 3 would be right, and all, etc, etc. This is how we do the count, right? So we do the count here, and then we project the count against the %1, and then we select the X, select 3, and this is the second one we're displaying, so which will be X select 3, which is the something what we are testing against. Again, X is a magic variable, we're testing against something. So what are we testing against is the points here, if you notice. Sure. So for each points of get array points, we are grabbing points from config file, and we are also displaying them on the action as well. So, that's pretty much how it works. I hope you understand what I mean with that. And then in this case, we are sending over the count. Well, see, selected action helps with cleaning up as well. I can't remember actually why I did that, but I think that was very important. Right, on to the next one, which is initialize snap points, which is very simple. We're creating a snap gizmo called variable that. We're actually creating a sphere which is local. So if you noticed here, I'm not sure if you did, we created just the damn thing again. We have created a normal vehicle, which is a publicly seen. Everyone, like, it's still an invisible sphere, right? But the create vehicle, that means people in the multiplayer will be able to see an object you're currently trying to build. Okay, so because the object helper is visible, and anything else attached to it will be also visible to players around you. So if you do create vehicle local instead, this sphere will be only built local to the player, and what people around will see is just a guy walking around the base, and suddenly, bam, a wall appears in a perfect position, snapped. I was like, what the fuck, right? So instead, just to make people aware of what's going on, that to show that the guy is actually building something, you might want to leave this to the create vehicle instead, so people around can see that he's building something from people. But we don't want really people to see all these snap points, snap gizmos around, right? Like, what's the point, you know? Suddenly someone is attacking a base or something, and then the guy comes in and he sees that a whole base is full with these little dots, you know, gizmos, and I was like, wow, okay, what's going on? Like, or this guy is busy building, so he doesn't know he's being invaded, you know. It's a dead giveaway. So we're doing the local instead, so only the player that is creating these snap gizmos will see them, which is a good thing. So then we're just setting the texture to it to inactive automatically, and then we are attaching it to an object which is the, let's say if we're building the wall, we are attaching gizmo to the wall, and then we're automatically selecting the tested objects. X select 1, so 0, 1, 2. Show you. These are the points. For example, we are building a sandbag, right? And it will automatically attach these little gizmos to select 0, select 1, select 2, and select 3 will be the name of that guy that we find in the action. Scroll back again a little bit, okay? Select X, again select 3, you see? This is the name of that gizmo, so 1, 2, 3, and 4. So 0, 1, 2, 3, select 3 against points. You can see the same same arrays are being tested. I hope you get the idea, right? So these are this part here is being used for the coordinates of the local space of the object, and this is the name for the add action. And what we're doing here is we are creating a new array, again empty array. We are setting array to count the same array, and always add the currently made gizmo to the end of the array. So this is how you fill up the array, actually, pretty much. This always find like the last, currently last, like the count. It just counts elements in the array, and then it adds this to the end. So basically what you can do is you can do -1, and it will replace the last one instead. You can do -2, and it will replace the last before the last. Like, you get the idea. Let me just actually undo these things, right? Right, and then this is in its snap points. This is for the object we're holding, for the dummy object, and this is for the objects nearby, basically for the whitelisted objects. So what we're doing here is we get the position of the object you're holding, not the player, but the object we're holding, because why the hell not? We start with new empty arrays as usual. Start with clean stuff. Don't add to already filled up arrays that will just break your game, because you're gonna have a lot of points that will stay in the game. How would you want that? And then we are filling up the whitelisted, the empty array. We're filling up with the nearest objects we find within the position of the object, and that is whitelisted within get array snap to, which is this one here, within 15 meters. And then we are excluding the object we're holding. Obviously, why would we, you know, add object we're holding to an array of nearby objects? It's not. It is actually, like, in game logic, it is a nearby object. But why would you want to add it to the list? I mean, it doesn't make sense. But if you do not include this, your object you're holding will be in the beginning of the list. So because it's the closest one to itself. But again, what's the point? And again, if you still prefer to do that, well, go ahead. And then we are creating another empty array, which is going to be the public one, which we can access from outside the function. So like a global. not a public one, sorry, global variable or global array, and then we are setting a nearby object to be a currently tested one, so we can access it within the second for each. I know, guys. Sorry, but yeah, maybe it'll help if I start using counts. But for now, I'm just using for each. Well, don't blame. Yeah, don't be mad. So anyway, so we're trying to get the points nearby. Like the type of I'm doing the type of X is because the tested object is actually a 3D model. It just comes up with a really long name. If you debug the game, for example, it contains the reference code of it's like looks really like a HTML code, like the ID of the object. It's an in-game ID of the object, so that's how it keeps objects unique to each other. And so what you do is you do a type of that object instead to get its class name. So that's how you can check against class names like these. And then you're looking into the points array. That's what you need. So the points nearby. This is where you pick up the points. So the points nearby we just created. Right now, like we have the object we're testing, like this. One of the first nearby objects. Let's say nearby we have a sandbag. We have X is a sandbag for now. So now we are grabbing nearby object. We're telling nearby object to become a sandbag now. And then again, then here this is a sandbag, and we want points of it from the nearby. So we are populating an array of points nearby with these points here. And then we are going through every single point, and we are creating local spheres on every single one of them. And what we're doing here is we're defining position nearby of the nearby object. We just found the object we are testing against. You see, the way I'm doing it's because we are inside a different loop. We want to use, instead of using X, we can't use X anymore because it's a magic variable. So in here, it will be a different X. Like X will be something different. In this case, X will be the first X will be this one. The first element in array. This will be the second tested X, the third and fourth tested X. So we cannot say position nearby is like equals to X. We can't do that anymore. So that's why we created this one. So we know what we're testing against. So we're taking the same object and we're doing a model to world to translate the model position of this array into the world positions. So we're selecting X. So you see, I can't just go with I can't just tell it to use the first point, like X select 0, like this first array. I can't use that because you see the array actually consists of 4 elements and the game does not understand that. So we only want to access the first 3 elements. So we're doing X select 0, X select 1, X select 2, and then we're taking our gizmo and we are just simply like kind of teleporting it or moving it to the position just created in a world space from the local space. And then we are also setting its direction to object's direction. This is for the way snap building works. So no, if you don't do the set there get there, what happens is there is also some other things related to multiply that happens. I don't really exactly know why that happens, but don't concern yourself with that. But the set that get there I'm doing here is because the way, like, all of these snap points, if you don't do this, they'll be, imagine all of these snap points spawning and like rotating towards north, so direction 0. So once you snap the object to the nearby object, what happens is all your buildings will always be facing north. Not the way the way you build is, it's not always perfect. It's not always south, east, west, north. It's skewed between, like, 300.785 and all that kind of crazy directions. You get what I mean, right? So this is why we're grabbing original direction from the object we're testing against. And then we're populating a new array, and we are adding all these snap gizmos to it, so we can access it from outside of the function, and we can manipulate. We can we don't, like, since we have already created an array here, we don't need to create it anymore anywhere else. We don't, like, if we want to delete them objects, we can do it from outside. If we want to access certain elements of it only, we can do that from outside. We already have an array for that. We don't have to create it anymore. So that's why it's a public variable as well. Right, the next one. Oh Jesus, I need some water. Hold on. Sorry about that. Cleanup. Of course, we also want to do cleanup. Let me just minimize that. Here we go. So the cleanup works and all, like I explained earlier. Remember, we were creating the two arrays from init snap points and init snap points nearby. We created two arrays, if you remember. Right. So this is where you access them to delete them. So the snap point cleanup is really simple. We just detach them all from the snap, because the snap gizmos, they were attached to an object we're holding. They were attached to an object attached to a object helper. So gizmo is attached to an object that is attached to object helper. Get it? So we are detaching it, every element we're testing against, and then we're deleting it. And the second array was this one here. This is the nearby gizmos. Also just deleting it. We did not attach those, remember? So yeah, those are not attached, so we only need to delete them. And then we're just setting snap. This is just a safe thing. This thing here I'm doing is for the next part I'm going to show you, which is to switch off the while loop. If I don't, excuse me, if I don't do that, the while loop, like you finish the building, the while loop will just keep going on and on, clogging up your resources. Happened already, of course. Right, so this is the yeah, the craziness. This is where this is still work in progress, okay? But as you've seen yourself in the video, it does work. It's like, yeah, to yeah, certain extent. But this code I did this code this evening, and pretty happy with it, but still needs a little bit of tweaking. I'm still trying to understand how the while loop works and how to exit with out, like, yeah, how to disable it, and why at certain points it ignores the if statements within itself. I think it's the shittiest loop ever, like the most retarded loop, or it's just probably me, but I think it's the worst loop of them all, and you should probably avoid it if you can. But I could not, because I need something to check something in real time all the time. Right. So basically, why the action state is true, again, if you will clean up, this is where we switch it off, right? Well, the action state is true. Again, the action states, these are the action states, okay? Off, on, auto, manual, selected. And well, it's set on. We are doing some private variables that we only want to access from here, and again, all nicely defined. Everything, yeah, all the variables we're using, they are already defined there. Then we're going through snap gizmos nearby we created earlier. Remember, gizmos nearby. Yeah, that we're going through the array, and we're finding the x, and if the x is not the closest point, which is normally we start with object null, which will be, the statement will be true, of course. Then we select, we set its texture to object inactive. Of course, we're not gonna, this is not gonna work because it's just object null, but still, that's for the future what we're trying to do. Then we're doing a test position test x, or tested position. And I don't think I need to explain this, do I? Just basically get position of the, like this, right, here we go. This is an array. So this here, as you can see, test pos is variable is array. So this is the first element for the x, y, and z. So we're getting from the tested, what we're doing is we're pulling the first element. To create the first element, we're pulling the first element from a tested object. And that's how we create an array of just 3 digits. It's a big code for just 3 digits, but that's how it works. Yeah. Then we're doing the distance check against the object helper we're holding. So distance from the world space we created here to object helper, and then then we're also doing the same thing we did earlier. We're converting x to a closest point to an actual like a physical the reference to we're creating like a reference to a unique ID of the object we want to test this stuff against. And we're doing if the distance check is lower than the distance closest, which was it's like a check of the distance, right? So distance closest, we start with 10, so we start with 10 meters around us. So if the distance check, right, is the object helper to a test position, is smaller than distance closest, this one is being removed and it becomes the closest one now. And then we go, just set it to inactive. We change the now the closest point will be distance to closest point that we found. We grab the x, right? This is the new guy we found. This is the closest to us. Of course, it's just the object. It's just the first object in the array we're testing here. It's just the first one. Obviously, we're gonna go through all array, but the difference is if the distance will be bigger than what we're testing, that object will be ignored. So this guy will stay as it is. And then we go through all array, and if we suddenly find another object that is actually closer, that new object kind of becomes a closest object, or our main guy, or a superhero of the day. That's how I did a distance checks. The next one is where we switch between the manual and automatic state. So basically in here, you notice that it's a pretty small one actually. This is the manual state, which is you don't have much control over. It does not snap inside manual. As you can see, the code does not let. It actually should be snapping. See, yeah, it should be snapping. It doesn't snap. I don't know why. It does snap here. That's kind of weird, but it does not snap. It should be snapping, but it's not a biggie. Don't really care. So if the object is detached, we are this is kind of pointless to explain because it doesn't really work for some fucking reason. But the point is, if the helper is detached, we have our manual, because it's manual also, we have selected point if it's the left or right gizmo. Yeah, and once it's detached, it's told to automatically snap to the closest point, but it does not for some reason. I'm really too tired to figure out why. Otherwise, if its action select is anything else but manual, which is in our case it's automatic, it'll be checking against another array. So for the manual state, we are only checking for the nearby gizmos, because what we're doing here is we are selecting our main point like manually, so what is the point of checking the closest what is the point of checking the gizmos of the object we're holding if we are choosing them points manually, right? So what's the point? So we only need to check the nearby gizmos. However, if it's set on manual action state, then we do our own gizmos as well of the object we're holding. Pretty much the same thing I explained earlier. See, the code is pretty much the same anyway. So now we have checked against 2 arrays, and now if we detach the object, it will it will get all the positions, directions here, and then if you noticed here, it will detach the object quickly, and then it will select the object helper to the new closest our own gizmo. Will quickly attach back to it. The object will be quickly attached back to the object helper, and then only the snapping will happen. This is because we have changed our local gizmo. Let's just put it that way. Has changed position. Like for example, the left has become right because the right point is closer to something else, and the left one is not closest anymore. So this is where quick detaching, attaching happens. To wait until stops the while script. It stops everything. So basically, once attached, sorry, once the object is detached, it will halt the whole function script. I'm keeping this for optimization purposes. So it's otherwise, if you don't use this sleep, it will run every frame per second. It does not need. There's absolutely no reason to do that. It will just bog down your performance. So I'm just doing 0.1 seconds instead. This check, and it is waiting for you to pick up the object again. So it's not helper detach. When that's true, the whole the script resumes the action. Right. So I think that's everything covered. I hope you liked my explanation. It wasn't that bad. I mean, it wasn't that hard. I thought it would be much harder to explain it. Anyway, guys, leave me any comments what you think about this. Would you actually want something like this in an official release of Epoch? That's the main question. And if you do notice something that is out of, you know, something bad, or if you notice something I'm doing really wrong, do let me know, please, because I am here to learn, and I am here to obviously share the whole everything I'm doing here is gonna be open source. Every model, well, I'm not really sure about models yet, but they might be also open source, fully available. But all the code I'm doing is gonna be always open source for you guys to check it and use it and change it as you please. Yeah. So thanks for watching, I guess, and I'll see you around. Bye.